Hi guys, Chris from Giffords on the Go. In today's video, we're sitting down talking with Kurtis and Havilah from Wander With The Workmans. Suzanne and I got the opportunity when we were in Truth or Consequences to sit down with Kurtis and Havilah, get to know them, have a great time, just laughing, have some fun, find out who they're all about. Let's get back to editing the video, get it out so that you can see it, check it out. Remember to check out their page. Thanks a lot.
Hi guys, thank you for coming today and having us in your home.
Yes, thank you.
Tell us who you are and your channel.
Well, I'm Kurtis.
And I'm Havilah.
And by our powers combined, we are Wander With The Workmans. And that's where you can find us on YouTube and Instagram. We're Wander With The Workmans. It's long, it's obnoxious, and it makes us very, very happy.
Oh, that's wonderful. How long have you been doing this now?
Well, we bought the trailer in October of 17 and spent the winter months remodeling the interior. We didn't do much with the systems, but it looked like 1998. It's a 1998 Fleetwood, and it looked like everything that was wrong with 1998. And so we spent the winter redoing the floors, we redid the cushions and everything like that, and finally got on the road in August of 2018. So we're just about 6-7 months down the road.
Nice, nice. So I want to go down a different road with this interview. What has been the funnest memory so far created in this life adventure?
I'll be honest, I'm really interested to know what your answer is too.
Well, why don't you answer first while I think about it?
Wow, narrowing it down to one is kind of the toughest. One of the funnest memories I think was Oak Creek Campground. That one was such a happy accident. When we took off, one of our main goals was we were trying to get from Idaho to Houston in a rather rapid fashion, and it was taking a huge toll on us. And because we were just moving, we weren't even unhooking. We were moving, sleeping, moving, sleeping, and just, it was kind of torturous. And at one point in the middle of Utah, in the Badlands of Utah, we got comfortable in the truck. And we started talking, and we were joking, and just having a good time. And that was kind of, it was starting to feel comfortable. And we realized we missed our turn. I don't know how the Google Maps had gotten turned down or something. And when I say we missed the turn, we didn't just miss the turn. We blew past it by 70 miles. By 70 miles. Before we realized we had missed it. And at that point, it's just not worth backtracking that far, especially we're getting on in the afternoon. So if we backtrack 70 miles and then go the 100 miles down the road that we should have gone down, we'd be setting up in the dark. And so pull up Campendium, we pull up Google reviews, everything like that. We find this unreviewed National Forest campsite near Delta, Utah, called Oak Creek Campground. And we're like, well, let's give it a shot. It's closer than where we were going. And so we travel and we get following the map. We go through Delta, Utah. We go down this country road, and it starts to narrow down, and it becomes one lane. We haven't done a whole lot of towing this trailer. We haven't done a whole lot of backing, and I'm having these visions of like, what if that logging truck is coming the other direction? How are we going to get ourselves out of this? And the trees are starting to come in over this, and I'm like, and are we lost again? Did we miss this turn? Because it seemed like we were on this country road forever. And finally we come around the bend, and there's one of those big giant National Forest signs, National Forest Service, Oak Creek Campground. Well, okay, we made it. This is great. And then we start looking at the turn into this campground. It goes over, it's a bridge over a creek, and it is just about as wide as the trailer. And it took us a couple of shots of getting into it. You pull into this campground, though, and it is stunning. I mean, it is absolutely beautiful. One side of the campground is a granite cliff face, and then the whole thing is just ringed by oak trees. And there's acorns on the ground. It was high enough, and we were late enough in the year that it was starting to get on fall, so colors were starting to change. we were able to back in really nicely, and then we woke up to deer grazing around us. There were a few friendly cows. There were wild turkeys going through it, and we'd been on this pace, and we just decided at that point, we're going to stay here for a couple of days. We need to just stop and decompress. And so it was a beautiful place, had good enough amenities, and it was just kind of that moment where it was like, okay, this, what we were doing in the couple of weeks before this is not what we want to be doing. There's no way that this life is sustainable. This is what we expected. And so for me, that's one of our my favorite memories so far is just that whole thing. And to have it happen as a happy accident, you know, where we ended up, where we were going, we'd seen reviews. The pictures weren't as gorgeous. You know, there were better amenities, there were trade-offs and stuff, but it was just such a happy accident, and it turned out so well that it was a really great experience for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, when we had made the plan to go to New Mexico and buy the New Mexico State Parks pass and travel around and get full usage out of this pass because it's good for a year. And I had never been to New Mexico in my life, and I just thought that New Mexico was just a lot of cacti. Wasn't the prettiest place in the world, not the prettiest girl at the ball. And so I was like, all right, we're going to do this because it will be financially the right thing to do, but not really like where my heart is at. I'm actually a really big Montana girl. I love mountains, I love streams, I love lakes, I love big blue skies, I love green. And so when we came down to New Mexico, I was really surprised because northern New Mexico has actually got a lot of really pretty parts in it. Pretty to me, because it's pine trees, and it is, you know, a lot of mountain streams and things like that. And so I really loved Tolby, campground up in Cimarron State Park, up in northern New Mexico, and we met a couple of people there, and it was the first time that we really had we made friends on the road sort of thing, where we hung out with them, you know, had some beers one night.
Really expensive beers, the tourist prices. So it was like $25 for a 12-pack of Bud Light, to give you kind of an idea of how touristy this Angel Fire, New Mexico is.
But it's beautiful, and that was really cool to me to see. Like, there's this part of New Mexico. The southern part is what I expected, but the northern part is a lot prettier than I had expected. So that was really cool.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So in the travels in an RV, we know that it's a small space, and that within that small space, we discover new areas of our relationships. Some are not so good, and others are really good. What has been the best part of your relationship that has evolved for the better?
I'm going to force you to go first on this one.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Turnabout's fair play.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we both work from home, and that was actually why we were able to hit the road, because we're not independently wealthy or something and can just go off and have, you know, years of nothing but fun. We do have to work, and so be working from home meant that we could, why not do it on the road? And there was a year or so, was it a year maybe, before we left, where we were both working from home. And that was a really big transition for us, because a lot of couples are used to, like, you go to work, I go to work, we have our own separate spaces, we see each other for a couple of hours in the evening time, you know, on the weekends a little bit, but it's okay because we both got our own, like, apart and space from each other. And we really had to go through that, like, I am all up in your business. We may have been in an apartment, but we were still together, like 24/7. And so we went through that adjustment period, I think, in the apartment. And so when we hit the road, I don't know that we really spend all that much more time together now than we did before, because Kurtis, before, he was on like city council, and so he would be gone for meetings and things like that. And now he's on the fishing committee, so self-appointed, single member, at least in his family. And so he goes off and he goes fishing, and I stay here and I work. And so I think I don't know. I think it just is kind of reinforced to us, like, we are each other's best friends. And so we tend to get along really well and like spending time with each other. And I think that that's really important, because a lot of people say, I would kill my spouse if I spent all this time with him. And I'm like, why are you married to him then? But it's just me. I don't know.
One of the things I think has evolved for us, or at least that I see, is we come to common goals more often. Living in a sticks and bricks life, we would, like everybody, you go through those points where we would just couldn't stand each other, and a lot of it was when we had a common goal, when we had a common project or something like that, we are a great team. When we're doing our own independent thing, sometimes that's when the clashes would come. You're always gone, or you're working on this thing and you never talk to me, you know, those kinds of situations. Being out on the road, we have a lot more opportunities to have common goals. We have to get packed up and out of here before the checkout time. We have to get this far down the road before nightfall. We have to fix this thing, you know, and so being able to quickly hone into, this is a common goal. We're together and united on this one. So we come to that much quicker than we did when we were living in a sticks and bricks life. And so that has evolved quite a bit. I think that's for me, it's one of those favorite things to just be able to say, this is a problem, or this is a goal, or this is a project, and not have to wheedle through well, are you sure that's what you want? Just be like, oh, I can see why that's a goal. Let's do it.
So recapping on what Havilah was saying is, this could either make or break couples.
Very
Either
much
couples
so.
will find their common ground, or they will decide that this isn't right for them. Would you recommend this lifestyle for other couples?
This isn't going to fix it. If it's broken, this is not going to fix it. It's just going to break it faster. And so, at least in my opinion. And so for couples that do communicate well, that like each other, this is a fantastic adventure. This is, you know, there is so much to see, and one place we kind of maybe differ a little bit is, I like to be out a lot more than she does. Not to say she doesn't, but I like to be out and about, you know, and so I've become more independent in our relationship of, I'm going to go fishing. You stay here and work on the things that interest you. I'm going to go fishing or whatever, and we're okay with that. But at the same time, I'll see something when I'm doing that and go, the one person I want to share it with is not here. And so that is something we're working on and getting much better about. But if you are in a relationship with your best friend, and this is when you have that thought of anything that happens, and your first thought is, I want to tell my spouse, my partner, that is an indication that this is a lifestyle for you. And if you're like, I don't want to talk to them, I don't want to, it's just going to exacerbate that situation, and it's going to end quickly. So I kind of see that as the metric for whether or not to recommend this to somebody.
Anything from you?
I do think that is true. I also think on an individual level, that it needs to work for you. So, if you're really big into collecting, large objects, this is not the lifestyle for you. It does not work well. And so it really just kind of depends on what you really love. I am actually not the world's greatest traveler. I have to take motion sickness pills when I get into the truck, so that I'm not throwing up and things like that. So I don't even think that you have to be like a road warrior or love hitting the road and just driving all day. That's my own personal version of hell. But you, as long as you kind of approach it with the idea of we work together in terms of our travel style. So Kurtis doesn't stick me in the truck, for 8 hours straight and then is surprised that I don't feel well or that I'm grumpy.
Right.
And so we kind of take those sorts of things into consideration. And then also, I am a little bit more introverted than he is. He is just so extroverted that really doesn't say much. But he... And so he likes to go and go into town and go and see all the sights and things like that. And I'm like, I'm good to just, get my work done. I need to write, do whatever. And so I try to go, you know what? All right, you need to step back. You always have work you can do. Always. I could work 24/7, 365 and still have stuff that I need to do. And so I try really hard to, okay, let's do something that Kurtis really cares about. And then he says, okay, let's adapt to Havilah's travel style. So you really have to be willing to do that to make it as a couple in this lifestyle.
I love it. I love it. No, that's great insights, and it's really good to hear these perspectives, especially as a couple, as we are a couple, and there's single individuals that travel this lifestyle. And one of the things that, for me, I know that for one of the things that I struggled with in the beginning, and I didn't understand this because I wasn't, like you were involved with your community before, is what I became starving for was community. It was a very strange feeling for me that I was hungry to meet other fellow travelers, but we're all travelers, so how are we going to meet?
Right.
Was finding your community or starting to build that community, has that been a key component for you?
Well, yeah, being the extrovert, it probably is, I guess I won't speak for her, but it's huge for me, meeting people, because so much of the experience, to me, it's more interesting. You can go look at Rushmore. But when you stand there and you talk to the guy who says, I'm 80 years old and this was a recreation of the trip I took when I was 10, that is so much different than just, hey, there's some dead presidents on a wall, and so the human factor for me is huge. And I did find that same thing where I was kind of starving. That's why, for us, Tolby, meeting Steve and Jody in Tolby was huge, and finding events, whether it's the escapees group, Good Sam's, in our case Nomad Fest was our first RV get together. It was our first, and even before that we ran into the Phoenix Ramblers a couple of days ahead of time at Lake Meredith, and they got blown off the side of the lake. It was so windy at their campsite that they actually ended up in a small town campground next to us, and we're like, ooh, look at that, really neat. But getting to know Bobby and Sharon was really important. And it's one of those things where you don't know you're hungry until you start eating.
No, that's very true. It's a very good insight.
And so, kind of got some of that idea of like, well, we met these people, but that was so, Steve and Jody and Tolby in Cimarron, that was so new that we hadn't quite gotten to starvation levels for social interaction. But by the time we left them and made our way over to Texas, I had gotten to that part where I was really eager for outside interaction, and Bobby came over and introduced himself, and it was like I almost couldn't get enough of Bobby. Because I was like, oh, here's somebody to talk to and share stories with, and that kind of thing. And I guess I've been missing this. Yeah. And so, yeah, it is really important, and it can be a struggle. It can be a struggle to find that community, but we are really super lucky to have the internet, places like Epic Nomad, the app, RV Village, Escapees, and that kind of thing. So if you are extroverted like me and need that social interaction, it's much easier than just going into a random restaurant and being like, hey, who wants to be my friend today? Because that'll probably get you a weird glance or two.
Never happens.
Although it does happen. That's how we found Tolby. It was just random people found out what we're doing with our lives and just started talking. So, but yeah, socializing socialism is really important because I like roads. No, socializing is really important because you do need that community.
How about for you, Havilah?
Um,
Have you missed your community back home, or have familiar faces and stuff like that?
um, Christmas was a little harder for me. My family does kind of a funny thing that you really have to see to believe,
Yeah.
where they act out the nativity scene every year at Christmas time, and it is a really big deal. Like, all the grandchildren get dressed up in costumes that I bought when I was in the Middle East and brought back, and like we sing songs, and they have musical numbers, and it is dramatic readings, and it is some serious stuff, and so this last year was one of the first times that I've missed that, and that was hard. And then my female best friend, Gita, lives in Grand Junction, Colorado, and so I've really been missing her. But I don't tend to need to just hang out with people all day long. I'm pretty content to work. I really enjoy my job. So I'm really okay most of the time. He struggles more, but I do miss my family and I miss my best friend. So
Wonderful insights. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. I think for us, when I didn't know that I was going to miss community, like I didn't know, because I've become adaptive extrovert at work, but in truly, I could get really lost in the camper, and I could be there for days and go, oh, I gotta go to the store today. We're out of everything.
Right.
I've made everything stretch. And then all of a sudden you're at the grocery store and you're talking to complete strangers at the tomatoes and the apples, and you're like, oh, how are you today? That was huge. That's when I realized, oh, something happened. I'm missing, there's a screw loose, and it was community. So that was very big for me. And I appreciate you guys sharing, because it's hard to be vulnerable sometimes when you're sharing this stuff. And it's really important. I think we all hear about the road travels of being in an RV, and we hear about all the trials and tribulations. Everything breaks. It's not if, it's when in an RV life.
Yeah, definitely.
But people don't celebrate the good. That we need to celebrate more of the good. And that's super important to me, because we all come from different walks of life. And so if we don't understand why we have this commonality, then what are we celebrating this for? You know, we need to celebrate it. So just to wrap this up a little bit, I would like to 3 tips from the Workmans on the 3 tips of, if you were to do this over, what would be the 3 things you would have done a little bit different? Not because you can't go back and change. There's no regrets. You did what you did. Well, what would have, hindsight 2020, what would be the 3 things you would have done a little bit different?
I know that one, I know that we both agree on, before I even say what it is, but
yes, whatever it is.
yes, you'll agree. Don't worry. So when we first left, like he mentioned, we were on our way to Houston, and it was for a writing conference for me, and it was by invitation only. For successful authors, it was a very big deal that I was able to, attend this conference, got invited to it, was able to pay for it, all that good fun stuff. And because of problems getting on to the road, we were much, much, much later leaving than we had planned on being. And because I'm not a road warrior, it was really difficult for me to have long days and then to have them one after another. And I finally came to the realization that Houston was not going to happen, and that I just needed to let it go and be okay with the fact that we've hit the road, we've made it this far, right? And there were a lot of things that stood in our way, and we made it through all of them. And we need to just enjoy being on the road and stop pushing ourselves so hard to get to Houston. And so I guess maybe the one tip that I would give to myself if I could go back in time would be just give it up from the get-go. Because the first couple of weeks were truly hell. Between Jasmine not dealing well with traveling all the time, and me not dealing well, and just the stress and a lot of frustration about, like, was such a big deal for me to be able to go to this conference, and it was hard for me to give it up. But it was the right choice. So I guess I probably would have just said from the beginning, you know what, that's just not going to happen. Just let it go.
And if it's meant to be, you'll be invited again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So did you agree with me?
Oh, yes, definitely. And that is such a great point, though, of you have to be more adaptable and more willing to adapt than even you think before you hit the road. We had, because of her, I jump in on big grand ideas, and she does the granular logistical research. And so we match each other really well, because if not, I'd go off into the woods with my hair on fire. You know, and she's like, well, maybe that's not the best plan. Statistics show, you know, and that kind of thing. But even so, we had kind of gotten comfortable with this idea of things are going to break, traffic jams are going to happen, you're going to get lost. Be adaptable. But even once we got out on the road, you know, like Oak Creek Campground, you know, you have to be much more adaptable. You know, I would say, you know, if you think you're adaptable, add 25% more adaptability to your mindset before you head out on the road, because you don't know what you don't know yet.
The test hasn't come yet.
Yes. So that is definitely, you know, and that's a good example of it. And it seems like everything has been a test, some form of adaptability. This site's harder to back into, that turns tighter, something. And you can ruin it by getting uptight about it. And we've gotten uptight about it. We're getting much better about it. But the more we go with the flow, the better. And so be adaptable. Be more adaptable than you thought you should be.
Okay.
I think, in terms of your positivity, that honestly one of the things that I think that we did right was picking out our rig. This travel trailer has actually been a really good fit for us, and I know that it wouldn't be a good fit for a lot of people, but we like that it is not too long, so we're able to get in a lot of spots. We like the fact that it's a walk around queen, so that it's easier to make the bed. It's easier to get in and out of the bed. You can get out of the bed without crawling over your spouse and waking them up in the middle of the night. You know, there's a bathroom with a shower. We prefer not to use it. If we can use, like, a state park has a shower, we'll use that, just so that we're not filling up our gray tank. But we have that, you know, and so it kind of gives us that option. But we have a dinette and we have a couch. For a while we were looking at ones that were shorter and you had to choose one or the other. And so for us, having the different places that we can sit, because we both do work from home. So Kurtis sits at the dinette table and I sit on the couch, or Kurtis sits on the couch and I sit on the bed, or I sit on the bed and he sits outside. And so we have spaces that we can work and be next to each other, but not next to each other.
Right, yeah.
Because we still have to get our work done. And so this rig has worked really well for us. And you know, there's a couple of things that I'm like, oh, I wish this was a little bit bigger, you know, or whatever. But it's really not. I don't want a big Class A. I just don't. It is not for me. And I don't really want a huge rig. It's not for me. So I think that one of the things that we did right was watching innumerable YouTube videos, like countless, and really actually sitting down one night and me with my spreadsheets, going through and debating between the two of us. Okay, what's really important? Okay, so let's talk about this specific thing. Okay, now let's talk about this specific thing. And we went through and we nailed down every single thing that mattered to us. And then the things that are nice, and then the things that we don't care about at all. And then we made sure that the rig that we picked out worked for us in those regards. And so that was really important, and I think that we did it right.
So the third tip, if I could summarize that, would be do your research and find the fit that works for you in that dynamic of what you intend to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the caveat that research will only take you so far.
Right, until you actually
And you, there is this understanding I think you have to have of yourself and your relationship that allows you to move that research, because you can say, well, 25-gallon water tank is not as good as a 30-gallon water tank, but until you really go, okay, that's going to add a lot more weight and I'm not comfortable towing, and knowing, moving that from the realm of it's a statistic, it's a hard fact on a spreadsheet somewhere,
Correct.
to how it will actually affect. I call it the domino effect. Every life has a domino effect. Every one decision chooses another. Nate from Less Junk More Journey said it great. Saying yes to something means saying no to something else.
Correct.
And that this lifestyle really enhances that. It brings it to the forefront. Choosing to do one thing. When we were in a sticks and bricks house, doing one thing may cause a domino to fall a month down the road, or down in time. Now you make a decision today and it's going to affect something else that's happening today. So apart from do your research is so important, but do your research about yourself.
getting
as well.
real with yourself.
Yeah.
I like that.
To,
Thank you
to
so
thine own
much.
self
Yeah.
be brutally honest.
Ah, so true.
YouTube, Wander With The Workmans on YouTube, and you can also find us on Instagram as well. Those are the two main places we're most active on, and the reason for that primarily, for Instagram primarily, is you can also find us on Facebook at Wander With The Workmans on Facebook as well, but Instagram makes it very nice to co-share all of our experiences. So you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
And we'll make sure we put a link to your site.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you again.
You bet.
Hi guys, thanks for watching the video, our time that we got to spend with Kurtis and Havilah. I hope you enjoyed getting to know them as much as we did. You know, check out their page, Wander With The Workmans on YouTube. You can find them also on Instagram and on Facebook. Great people to know, great people to just sit and have a laugh with. So I hope you enjoyed it. We got more editing to do on some other things to come out here a little bit later. We're going to catch you later. Bye.